Peace. And what's the science, universal family? On another glorious day of the science of living mathematics. Now, let me start off by apologizing because I wasn't able to get y'all that jewel last night. And it might not seem like a big deal, but it is to me. It is the second time since I started doing these builds that I haven't been able to do it. You know, a lot of things is changing in my life, you know, for the positive, you know, that requires a lot of time adjustment for myself, you know, and it's just something that I figure, you know what, why not today just build on yesterday's degree and today's degree? You know, because I feel that each and every day carries with it a specific jewel that's important for us. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, let's talk about yesterday's mathematics. And it sounds weird because it's not something that we do. We focus on the now. But the jewel still applies because this is for those who are striving to learn, gain knowledge any way that they can. You know what I'm saying? So let's go through it. Yesterday's mathematics was build or destroy. And the 8th letter in your alphabet is H. H in the supreme alphabet is he or her. So how do we break that down? You guys hear me talk a lot about higher self and lower self, higher sphere, lower sphere. Right? So if you're looking at that, that's the 8. Right? When you deal with that balance of equalizing your higher self and your lower self, where you're not only focusing on your higher self and you're forgetting about the lower parts of you, or vice versa, you get the sign of infinity out there. You know what I'm saying? So what is build? Build is to add on. Build in the way that we talk is because we're adding on to the mind. We're adding on to self, gaining new perspectives, gaining new insight on things, deeper understandings for us to better comprehend our reality around us, the bubble that we all create, because that's what it is. We all create a specific bubble based on the information that we have, or those based on the lies that we tell each other. You know what I'm saying? And I don't mean lies that, let's say, you tell me, but the lies I tell myself and you tell yourself. You know what I'm saying? And this is why sometimes it's hard for people to break out of that bubble, out of their comfort zone when something new is introduced. So, what is destroy? Destroy is a takeaway. It's not something that is evil, right? Don't look at it as good and bad. It's a yin and yang. As you do this, the other stuff must happen. You know, the universe always has an opposite but equal reaction. So just as you build, you must destroy. Or just as you destroy, you must build. Either or. You know, and this is why it's or. Because sometimes certain situations, you know, come up that requires you to deal with destruction, to deconstruct. You know, just like taking down an old building, you know, that has a whole bunch of safety flags raised or anything that needs to be abandoned and it needs to be taken down, and to make room for something new to be built, right? And what does this have to do with he or her? Don't look at it as he is the build and her is the destroy, because that's not how it is. Because based on you not dealing with the balance of you building or destroying, that's what can happen to your spouse, to the person that you're with. You can either help build them up or you can be destroying them. This is why by a certain age, we come to a point, right, let's say experience as well, we come to a certain point that we're like, no, this is what I want and I'm not changing. Right? Because I'm tired of having somebody else come into my cipher and destroy what I have built. Let's say within self or things around me. You know, how many women have been doing good and get with somebody and this person just sort of destroys you over time? And how many have been able to help you build, support you, you know? And this is important because we have to understand the meaning of he or her, the meaning of us coming together as one to form one unit, right? Because it's us plus women that equal children. You understand? And the only way we're going to continue going is to always focus on the babies, man. You know, in the sense of doing things that's going to better them. And many times you also have to look within, and that's dealing with the duality of build or destroy. We sometimes have to look within, destroy what we shouldn't be having within, and adding on to self. So we become better people, better partners, better parents, you know, and better friends, you know, better role models. You get what I'm saying? And you have to be able to discern when it's time to build, how much to build, and how much to destroy. You know, you have to have that self-control. This is why build comes after equality in God. Because once you learn how to balance yourself, now you start dealing with the higher self of who you are, your ultimate potential, the supreme being that you are. Now you have that responsibility to build or destroy. Now you have what it takes to be able to do this correctly. You understand? And I know that was quick for yesterday's mathematics because obviously today we're going to focus on today's mathematics, which is born, right? And the 9th letter in your alphabet is what? I. I in the supreme alphabet is I or Islam. And what is born? Now we're thinking about babies being born, and it's a process of becoming complete, the completion of the 9-month cycle, right? Where a child is conceived, goes through its different stages of growth and development, goes through a process, and the birthing process, which is by itself a whole different phase, culminates the completion of your development. Right? And what does that have to do with I or Islam, or Shine? Speak up, brother. Yeah, Rob, what does that have to do with I or Islam? Well, it's not I, it's I. Right? Like the letter I. As an individual. It's stressing and showing you the importance of you having to go through your own process, whatever that may be, for you to be born. Because we take it from knowledge to born. And that's important, most important. Because how can you sit there and help others be born or complete a task when you cannot even complete yourself? Your process might take longer than obviously other things, let's say outside of you, other things that you projects that you are striving to do. But remember, each step is the degree within itself. Each degree is a cipher within itself. You know what I mean? It goes through its own completion cycle, and then you move on to the next step. Then move on to the next step. No matter how small or how large that is, as above, so below. Alright? It's all based on perspective. Alright? Because with that, there's different degrees of infinity. And what I mean by that, and I built about this before, is that you can go from 1 to infinity By counting by ones, counting by twos, by fives, by threes, by tens, by 0.5, whatever that number may be. You get what I'm saying? I might reach 10 million if I go by hundreds faster than, let's say, when you go by ones. But either way, we're reaching that number, right? So there's different degrees of infinity. So look at it that way. And each step, the way you, the birthing process, the born, is all based off on what degree of infinity you're going through. So it might be small little achievements, and that's the best way to do it, because each step is going to consistently get you closer to the next step. It's going to motivate you to keep going because you actually completed something. It's like, oh wow, I finished it. Let me move on. You know, versus you just striving to go from 1 to a 10,000 right away, and you reach it, you can't sit there and reach it, and you're always going to be contemplating, oh, I'm a failure, I can't do this. When all it takes is something small, you know, and I go through that myself too. And we feel that we don't got enough time, but yet we spend most of the time on social media or just doing other things. And if you can sit back and look at how much time you're wasting, then you'll see how much time you have. You understand? And what does this have to do with Islam, right? We spoke about the I. Well, the completion of Islam is I self Lord and the Master. I sincerely love Allah's mathematics. You know, these are acronyms and all that, but what Islam to me is the universal law of all things, which you might call the laws of physics. All these things, the law, the will that makes electrons spin a specific way, or make protons spin another way, the electric charge, all these things, the force of gravity, the weak force, the strong force, the electromagnetic force, all these things that dictate how things go on. This is Islam, and we are part of that, right? You can't create a rule that you yourself break. What are you showing? You're not showing leadership. You're not showing guidance. You know, and I or Islam. Sometimes the completion process is my understanding of Islam as a whole. You know? And sometimes I focus on me. But I know that focusing on me is going to help me understand Islam, because that's what I live out. That is my culture, Islam, and not the religious form, right? Just like the term spirituality has been taken by religious organizations for their own meaning, but spirituality got nothing to do with them, right? When you're looking at the true meaning behind things, because obviously the meanings behind words change over time based on usage or how people's interpretation. And just like Allah and Islam is something fundamental, something primal. This is about the breath control, right? This the breath of life, Allah. If you look at that, it has something deeper than that. So each time you complete a phase or finishing up a phase in your life, you're reborn. You're reborn with this understanding of all these experiences that you've gone through during this phase. And you being born or reborn is a culmination of all these things. It is a process. And again, just like wisdom, it's something that can be hard. It's something that can be hard fought and won, right? You earn it. You know, just like what it takes every 7 years for every cell in your body to be renewed. So every 7 years, you can look at the fact that you are reborn every 7 years. You know, you can look at the growth and development of a child from the moment they're born to 7 years, 14 years, you know, so on and so forth. Looking at it like that, you know, and all these different cycles. And like I said, it doesn't matter how small the step is, the growth, how large that growth or development is. It all comes down to, are you completing yourself? Are you completing that process? You know, and it's important. No matter how fast or how long it takes, as long as that you're chipping away at it. You know, you might give up. And I know you've probably seen those pictures online where it shows one digger on the left side, and he gets one small little diamond or something like that, and he's happy, and then the other guy gives up, and he's only like one more chip away from the biggest diamond ever. You know what I mean? He's just giving up. And yeah, you might see it as the carrot being dangled right in front of you where you can never achieve it, but this is the work of the devil. This is the things that you got to see of what they put in front of you. Success, the so-called American dream, you know, of achieving all these things. This is why now rap videos and all that look like commercials. So showing you all the jewelry, all the women, all the cars, all these things. And it's like, it's trying to put you that this is what you should want. This is what makes you cool. This is how you get all the women. You know, looking at the subliminal behind it. But you have to realize those things don't complete you. That doesn't make you. That is shallow. Talk to the people who've got to that point and had that money and actually spent some time there, and you realize all the fakeness that comes with that. This is why you got a lot of celebrities that are doing heavy drugs and go through depression or commit suicide, because for the money, they didn't deal with true completion, being born within themselves to truly be at peace with self. And it wasn't so much about focusing on the I. It was focusing so much on the industry. You know, those who, let's say, write you the check. And you cannot be afraid to not sell yourself. For you to take that extra time to achieve what the devil is trying to offer you. You know what I mean? You can achieve that yourself. And always remember this jewel. He likes the devil because the devil gives him nothing. And I want you to think about what that means. And that's obviously in the higher degrees. And this platform is not to get on the higher degrees per se. We can reference them and whatnot, but this is obviously for those who are newborns per se. And that's a term that we use for those who are initiates per se into the knowledge of self. You know, they're newborns in the sense that this information is new to them, and they're being reborn into this new light of self journey to realize itself and being born complete with the knowledge of self. And yes, looking at it from a physical standpoint, from a literal point of view where babies are being born, yes, the mother goes through a lot, and at the end you have the baby, you know, and it's all beautiful. But the whole process is beautiful. It could be painful as hell. It could be dangerous. But overall, looking at that ability is a superpower. And respect that. You know, and looking at it in that form, and obviously, mothers, you guys will know what I mean when I say use that birthing process as an analogy, because again, when I say knowledge of self, it can be very hard emotionally to deal with the traumas that you may have, and having to go through that birthing process, right? The pressure, the pain, the energy required to be able to do that, you know, the stress, anxiety, everything. It's, figuratively speaking, the same thing, because having to be able to admit to yourself and look in the mirror, just like with Neo when he had in the Matrix, when he had a whole bunch of different screens, when he was seeing the architect of all the possible reactions that he can have. When you can see that, all the possible personalities that you could have, or your reactions to things, the good and the bad, it's be daunting. It's something that's hard, painful, to be able to see that, to face your demons at the end and come out on top. You know, looking at the overall goal of self, or I should say the realization of self, can be intimidating. But from my experience, it is the greatest thing that you can accomplish, because it's not a task that your job asks you to do, not a task your kids require you to finish. It's not your teachers, your parents told you to do. This is something that you do for self, and that's all there is to it. And you will see that the end result is much greater than what you anticipated, right? And again, I would like you guys to come to that realization of self and be able to open up that dialogue. You know, again, leave comments, questions on the comment section, please. You know, please subscribe. Please hit that like button. And go check out my merchandise, you know, pharaohnovo.com. You know, the whole time in the video, I'm trying to move at different angles so you guys can see the reflector, you know, the M3. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so we're just building this platform. And again, I apologize for not being able to give you guys one yesterday, but broke it down into two. And I will strive to always do a video every day. Once the podcast comes, obviously that's going to be once a week per se, because obviously the editing and whatnot. But just to give you guys a heads up on that. All right, I'm just working on it, formulating the plan in my head, and I take the time because it's a process. And once it's complete and I'm satisfied with how the vibe that I want to portray, you know, the cool, you know, it's not always just serious, you know, relaxed vibe. You know, they can be heavy building, you know, lightheartedness in the sense of, you know, there's going to be laughter, you know, jokes, because again, this is how we look at things. Many times you might see something that's funny and it's relatable, right? It's easy on the ears. So that's the plan. And again, I appreciate the love, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to tune in to the science of living mathematics. You know what I'm saying? So peace and enjoy the rest of this glorious day, people. right?